Hi there, this is Popo, I hope you're all fine. Welcome back into a new matches video where we're going to talk about the Carbuncles again. A few videos before I made a video with the Carbuncles explaining how the faction would work and how basically you play it. We played a game against the mermaids and this was a pretty easy game to win. And now I want to show you a very mad way to play the Carbuncles, showing you how you can put yourself into danger but at the price of a powerful attack. So this is a game against the computer I just played with the Carbuncles, and the computer plays the Cthulhu. So Cthulhu seems to be a weak faction at first glance, but as long as they would get mana and try to go further into a territory, you would face some big troubles. So let's start the game. So same opening than before, gem to d4, tube to f6 is a way to open, and gem to e4, so basically taking the center. We have tube to c6, which is already an accuracy, I guess, because I can just push on d5 and then you're pretty stuck. So the tube goes on b8. Could continue with this move here if I wanted, but I wasn't feeling this was needed. Instead I decided to play gem to c4. This is my opening ID. I want to get this diagonal for the hair at some time, and also I want to get this push here. So the idea is to create a pawn storm. We have limb to d6, gem to d4, so now I get a very cool center. We have limb to e5, changing the center, and if you calculate well, then yeah, you can definitely take, and after recaptures, you capture with the quads. So you don't have the center now on the dark squares, because now your opponent can decide to go here, but at some point you still have some control, and I guess your opponent is trying to open your position and limit your pawn storm to strike back. So let's see how it goes. We have tube to d7, so asking for a trade. Here I decided not to trade this way because I guess this is well placed, but because I was following a pawn storm strategy, I decided to go for gem to f4. So if captures, I can just recapture. And at the same point, this is pretty scary. So this is why we have two captures. Gem recaptures. We have intermezzo able to b4, which is a pretty interesting move. Here, this is not easy to block because I can block here if I want, and then it can capture, and then maybe my scroll wouldn't be placed for really nice play. I can decide to block this way, and then if captures, I can capture with the squirrel, but that would be a second squirrel on dark square, so maybe capture with the king. But if I try to run away with the king, then this would be met with the tube to g4 check. And somehow my opponents would start to have a lot of activity, and this is something that I didn't want. So I decided to challenge with the heir to d2, captures, and king captures. So very important to maintain these two squirrels because they control some squares for the defense. So important for me to stay with this. And at some point on the game, the squirrel would develop when I would feel very sure. Also, what's very important is that the fox never moves. So they control more and more square on the back rank of my opponent. So we have tube to g4, avoiding the threats, makes sense. I decided to play heir to g3 because this is attacking this pawn, so you have to defend it because the quartz here is gone. So yeah, maintaining the pawn structure is very important here with castle. And now maybe I play a little bit of imprecision maybe. I wanted to kick this and I decided to play gem to f3, so this seems logical but hard to g5 strikes. So I decided to push to get a tempo, so now this is 3. At some point maybe putting this pawn into the fight is somehow good. Maybe I should have attacked this way, I don't know. So anyway, the heart flows back to e7, and now I decide to follow my attack with a gem to h3. So making sure also that this would be never attacked by the tube, because the presence of this tube is very annoying somehow. So we have heir to b4 intermezzo here, and you have to think a little about what's going to happen here. You can't really go here because my opponent would very happily decide to go here, and then once the king have moved, he would capture here. I'm forced to recapture. So yeah, this is something I don't want to happen. I don't want to lose my queen. So this is why in the game I decided to follow with king to e2, so I'm sure that I'm controlling these squares, and if my opponent goes here, oh, first of all he can't, but later in the game, if he decides to strike somewhere, I can still block this way. Okay, so to h6, retreating, and now this is time to begin my attack. So see what I can have. I decided to play the quartz to f3 because now this is time for the defense. Maybe this hair would move, so I have to be sure that I'm making something because I would push the pawns. Also, this thing can slide along this column, so it can be powerful to block. For example, I was planning to put it to b3, so be sure that this square would never be available. But yeah, I don't know why he's playing into defense. We have able to d7, which is a pretty good move. It threats to capture here and here, that would be devastating, and also it threats to go here at the same point. So I decided to block with the gem to f5. This makes sense. Also at the same point it opens the way for this squirrel here later on. And we have hard to a3. So now this begins to be a little tense, because it's basically telling me you can't really put this here, else I'm going to take with check. And now that would be somehow to block, and then maybe you have to retreat this way, and you have still this. So I decided directly to go for the push. So we have these very nice connecting pawns that are matching forward, and normally one of them is queening somehow, or destroying the field of my opponents. Here, yeah, this is basically doing this. So with this threat, my opponent decides to capture with the limb on e6, and then what gem you use to recapture? I was thinking that if you recapture this way, then the way is open for the wing, and when you have two flanks of your defense which are opened, this is not a good idea. You see that I'm pretty exposed, but I play on the fact that my pieces are very well defending. So I decided to capture with the gem on e6. Okay, this creates an isolated gem, but this square is still here to defend it somehow. And later on I can decide to put, for example, my quartz here, so that will defend. So this is attack, it has to move, and of course it moves to a4. And now I'm pretty sad because I have to move my fox. And because this is range 4, I can't put my fox here because this is going to be taken. So very sadly I have to move manually my fox, so I lose a little of an advantage, but this is not that concerning because you see that the game is open. So now this is the way, this is the time for me to get the fox into the game. You see that the king has two defenders. If I get a lot of attackers plus my pawns, normally that would do it. So I decided to play fox to d4. So fox to d4 is... the idea here is that you can't replay on a light square because you're going to be chased away, and then that would fall here. So you don't want that to happen, so you play to a dark square. So I decided to play, of course, to d4. We have limb to c5, so asking is if I want to go to the light squares. Of course, I don't want to. I can decide to go here, I can decide to go here. There are several ways here. Going here might be a good plan because you get closer to the king and then you can try to push this. But this thing is very well defending. So my plan was to get here now that you have this square, then push here, and if this provokes a wing to move like here, then you can get back here, and then this wing is a little far away and you have this column, you can push this way. So this is why I first decided to go fox to d6 at first, playing with my threats of push. Now we have wing to d8. Maybe this wing would be a little better, but there could have been some threats of a double push here later, so you lose a tempo by putting your way somewhere else. So I can understand that this is the f wing that goes to d8, threatening the fox. So now the fox, of course, flies back to e5, and now you see that this defender is not doing the defense it should. So normally this is an advantage for me. At the same point, I'm pretty exposed, as you see. There are a lot of lines and columns that are opening up, but I play on the fact that I'm pretty well defended. But yeah, of course my opponent would try to push for the attack. We have able to c6 now, planning to get this, and at the same point there can be a threat of exchanging the queens. Here, this way, you see? Go check, and then you grab this and you make the exchange. So you have to be sure that it doesn't happen, if possible. So, as he didn't want to exchange first the queen, I can understand that, I decided to play the quartz to c3. So it defends this square, and at the same point, if you go here, then you don't have this fork here. Very important. Because exchanging the queen in this position would have been maybe beneficial for him. Maybe we're not that sure in this exact position, because I still have some gameplay. Now I can shift the fox here, I can play the hare somewhere here, I say fox, excuse me, the squirrel, and yeah, with the quartz here I maybe have some threats. So I play along this position if the queen was traded on post analysis, and I was still winning this way. So maybe here you have a little more pressure of this pawn, because you have to get a lot of mobilization here to defend that. So this is why quartz to c3 was played in this position. We have able to e8. Very passive here. Maybe understand the threat that you want to guard this, because if you decide to go here, maybe this hare could go here. So with this, excuse me, with this, maybe you prevent the hare from going here. So that can be understandable this way. But I still have my attack, and these attacks begin with square to g5. Now that this is also defended, my squirrel can go here, and you see that this square is stricken, and you have basically no way to defend that. You can try to get this, but yeah, you face with a very hard move with this, too much threats. Normally I'm just gonna win this game. So in the game we have hard to b2, which is played, king flees to f3, trying to avoid the most check possible. And now we have brain to h8. Technically, you can't do a lot of things. If you decide to stay the king here, then I'm just gonna take, and now that would be devastating, I guess. I get a tempo. So, king to brain to h8 is played. Technically, this is desperado, because you know that I'm completely winning. So you have to think a little, because you can take with that, else this is going to be taken with check, and then it wins back the queen. So you can't do this. So you have to take with a scroll, and now this scroll is defended by the fox technically. So if you can try to deviate the fox, you basically win the game, because you get one scroll. The only problem is that you don't have any good ways to deflect my fox, and I relied on that because you don't have a dark square bishop. This rook is doing nothing, and this knight is not doing anything. It doesn't have the squares. So instead, my opponent tries to play took to g8 to be sure that I would never push here, because actually, let me remind a little, this is a freight mate. A terrible freight mate. And also, if you decide to play here with a tempo, okay, I can decide to flee, but my next move is to push here, technically, and then I can go here safely, and after captures, this is still a freight mate. So this is why we have a took to g8 to be sure that there's no problem. But the same threat still happens with gem to e7. So now this is kicking this, and now I can safely go here. Even if you get the tempo here, I can still promote, and this will be technically difficult. I guess the computer didn't play the best moves to defend. It decided to retreat to b8. This is very passive, but maybe this was still winning for me, and he didn't find a way to defend that. So I decided to follow up with gem to f6, and now this scroll is also defended. So I can just go for a very quick mate, like if I put the fox on the right square, for example. With the fox here, this is checkmate, for example. So yeah. Also, I can try to shift the fox here and threat to capture with mate. I have a lot of threats, technically. So we have hard to b6, which be sure that this square would be defended, and at the same point, it attacks this square twice. So a very good way of dealing with that. And remember that this can't take, else this is checkmate. So I decided to follow with danger levels with hare to f5. So you can't capture here, because, you see that? Mate. A very simple mate. So, of course, my opponent can't take. So you have to defend now this threat. And this is pretty hard to defend, indeed. So, yeah. How do you do that? A way to do this would be very funny is to deflect actually the opposing. I was thinking of this move first. Do you see how we can win this? Oh, very, very simple. You can just promote a squirrel, and then this is a threat mate just here. And this is very hard. Okay, you can take, of course, this is possible. But then I calculated that you can just go here. And here, even if you decide to take here, I'm going to take here, this is mate. If you decide to take here, this is mate. So this gets very complicated to defend yourself. So in this position, my opponent decided to capture this pawn here. But actually, yeah, this is still a mate. Okay, defends this, but if you play correctly, you will find the checkmate in 2. So pause the video and find the correct solution. Well, Carbuncles mates are always amazing. So the mate that you have to find starts with scroll to f8 check. Here, this fox is controlling this square, so you can't fly to this, so you have to retreat the tube. And now, do you have the other move? If you think about this move, unfortunately this is not check, because the king now can run away here. Or maybe there is a checkmate pattern, of course there might be something, but yeah, this isn't enough to give the mate. Now, the move that you have to find was heir to g7. Very cool, and here this is some kind of smother mate bishop technique, which is very cool. And this is supported by the fox at the same time. So yeah, this was basically the game I wanted to show you with the Carbuncles. So what's the lesson of this game? You can take risks and completely open your position if you want, but you have to be sure that your attack is more powerful than your opponent's attack, and somehow only one of your flank is opened. This is a pretty risky situation, and I guess with stronger opponents it wouldn't work that much, but with intermediate opponents or easy opponents, this is a way that you should try to play. And forget that the strength of the Carbuncles is not playing immediately your pieces at the whole beginning. Wait for it, go for the pawn storm and crush your opponents. So I hope you like this video, and we're going to see each other next time. See you then, bye.